Yeah, there's a third. It's the third. I have to check my phone. Isn't that funny? The virtual is more reliable than the analog. How about that? So it's the 3rd of June, June 3rd. And we're about to launch into our Flower Garland Sutra lecture. And we do this every Saturday night. And please join with me. This is the title of the sutra here on the cover of your booklet. And we're going to chant the syllables in the bottom. The meaning of those syllables is on the top. Homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra of Great Expanded Teachings in the Ocean-Wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We do it in Chinese because that's where we are in terms of our chanting of it. And it works with our percussion instruments, our wooden fish and our bells. So that's our... One day we'll have it worked out for the Hammond organ? No, who knows? Might clap along with it. Do something very primal, very universal. But for the time being, we'll do the Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa that you've got there in the bottom of the front page, the cover. Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Please turn to page 4 and page 5 in our text. We have our tech team working hard to get us online because this lecture is being webcast right this minute out to using GoToMeeting conferencing software, which works well, and using YouTube, a YouTube live channel called Dharma Realm Live. So folks are able to watch it live as we go, but also they're able to watch it on an archives at the time of their choosing. So that works out well. We've been doing this attempt to put our sutra lectures out into cyberspace for quite a few years now, and have cycled through a whole variety of electronic mediums for doing that, starting out with something called PalChat back in the days. PalChat worked kinda, and then it didn't work, and then we switched over to the very same system that, in fact, that Grace Cathedral was using, which was a contractor that put it out into the air, and that worked well. I forget the name of that one. And then we discovered that, in fact, YouTube was the very best service, and we've kept with that for some time. So people can find not only our Avatamsaka Sutra on Dharma Realm Live, but also our Sixth Patriarch Sutra lecture, which happens Friday nights during the school year. So from September to May, Sixth Patriarch Sutra is also out there, plus lots of other one-off individual sutra podcasts and webcasts. So welcome everybody who's joining us online. In fact, we've been having more people online than we have in flesh and blood, which is, it's all right. You know, it's the way of the future. Certainly, we can't turn it back. I remember when the very first university classes, lecturers started to pre-record their lectures. And remember there was a joke, I think it was a New Yorker cartoon, where the professor had turned his lecture into a podcast. And so on the lectern where the lecturer was giving his lecture, there was a tape recorder with the on pressed, and the reels are turning. And so the cartoon was every one of the students' desk also had a tape recorder on recording the professor's lecture. So it was tape recorder to tape recorder. No human beings were harmed or even influenced in the slightest in the process of delivering that course content. What a joke. So at least this is still flesh and blood. I am not animatronic yet. Stuff with K-pop, with servo motors, not yet. So hopefully never. So we're at the top of the page. Let me tell you, let's read the first one, then I'll put it into context. Very top, we're going to read the Chinese first. We'll just do 4 lines, first stanza, and then go over and do the English. Okay, here we go. Let me give you a line, you give it back. 一切见者，良祖尊，哀悯众生，现神力，令此种种，主天乐，普发妙音，贤德温。Okay, over to the English. Let's read it in unison. Can you all read along with me on top of page 5? Here we go. Ready? The all-seeing honored one, who is twice made complete, displays his spiritual abilities because he empathizes with sentient beings, allowing those present to hear the Deva's music with marvelous sounds arising on every side. Quick summary, called the Flower Garland Sutra, Sanskrit Avatamsaka Sutra, Chinese Huayan Jing, Japanese Keigong Kyo. And we're going chapter by chapter. In fact, that's not exactly true. We're not going sequentially. We picked out certain chapters. We're in one called the 10 Grounds, or the 10 Stages chapter. Sanskrit, Dashabhumi. Chinese, Shidipin. Japanese, Chiu something pin. Don't know what the Japanese is. It's a chapter that talks about the Bodhisattva, the awakened being, how one behaves like a Bodhisattva, when you want to think like one, when you want to speak like one, when you want to act like one. This is where you go to get your instructions. And we've been saying it for Jerry. Tell me again, when was the first lecture of this series? You looked it up last week and you told us, and I forget. Anybody take a note? 2009. 2000. You corrected it? 2008?
2008, July 8th.
There we go. 2008, July 8th. Okay, how about that? Wow, 9 years. Whew. Going on this particular chapter, and out of 10 chapters within the chapter, we're on number 8. So we're just beginning number 8. So there we go. Let's see if we can remember that. 2008, July. Well, actually a month short of 9 years on. And 8 years on? Correcting my math? Pay attention. My math is funky. 9? There we go. So the Bodhisattva path, we've been saying, I interrupted myself and then interrupted the interruption. The Avatamsaka Sutra is a lot like an instruction manual. kind of like the thing you get with your new camera or your new lawnmower or your new washing machine. You get a doc file anymore. It's delivered electronically, right? And you can get an upgrade doc file and all. And it tells you how to operate it. The Avatamsaka Sutra is a whole lot like that. It's how to walk the Bodhisattva path. And it's sequential, it's progressive. It starts out with the Bodhisattva first doing something essential called, in Chinese, Fa Pu Ti Xin, making the resolve for awakening. Looking at his or her potential, because it is gender non-specific, and saying, I can be a Buddha. I know I can. I know I can have great wisdom. And the way I'm going to do it is by there's technical language. It's called taking living beings across. Okay, what would that mean? The Bodhisattva says, I'm going to, anybody who's angry in my mind, I'm going to quell that anger, get to its root, turn it inside out, and return it to nothing, where it began, where it came from. Right? We're not born angry. When we're sleeping, we're not angry. Anger is an emotion that rises and dissipates. So the Bodhisattva wants to root it out from his mind. How about greed? Well, when you root out anger and it dissipates, you've, quote, taken a living being across. You've taken an angry being across. That's the technical language. You've transformed, pacified, harmonized an angry living being. So if the next challenge, the next living being you meet in your mind is a greedy living being, well, you find a way to quell the greed, to satisfy. Is greed satisfiable, satiable? No, pretty much greed is insatiable. So you find a way to root out that sense of need that then manifests as greed, right? And that's the Bodhisattva's work. How do you do that in your mind? Slowly, carefully, repeatedly, over and over again. Of course, that requires you to do things like recognize greed when it arises around you. Where would that be? Well, the marketplace that tells you you need products before you're complete, perfect, satisfactory. That if you don't have that product, you're unsatisfactory, insufficient, and needy. That was the great discovery of the 20th century, was manufacturing greed and need. So you have to be aware of that, recognize when that's happening around you and say, no, I really don't need that. I'm happy as I am. Hard to do, because that requires you to be unhip, out of step, not trendy, right? You don't keep up with the Joneses, as we used to say. So that's taking living beings across. The Avatamsaka Sutra, how does it do it? It shows you the Buddha's eyes. We get to look through the Buddha's eyes at ourselves, our minds, and the world around us. And it goes way below, or way inside a self that needs stuff. It's really radical revisioning of our world and our place in it. And it's so interesting how I won't digress too far, we're just summarizing. But it says every bit of worldly, sense-based excitement, pleasure, desire, craving, thirst that we can set down, that's how much deeply rooted, truly satisfying wisdom and compassion we can pick up. So every bit that we set down, it's not that you have to become somehow tight-lipped and clenched against the world, fending it off. I don't see any of those things. It's not that at all. It's that what you pick up when you can set down selfish personal craving is a very satisfactory replacement. In fact, it's like coming out of a cave. The dark cave of the self is the way the Buddha describes it. We're kind of looking at a circle of light over there by the door, and we're safe in our cave and nobody can get to us. Never mind that we're alone and broken and afraid. But stepping outside of the cave, you realize, oh my goodness, this is a huge world around me. Look, it's just Wanli, Qingtian, Wanli, Wuyun. 10,000 miles of blue sky, 10,000 miles without a cloud, the sense of liberation and identity with everything around you. No need for emotion, no need for fear, no need for holding tight against the imagined things that are going to gobble you, right? That's what you pick up when you set down the selfish desires. So anyway, just to say, that's how the sutra gives us the instruction for taking living beings across like that. And it also gives us examples of somebody doing it. We get this generic Bodhisattva here, who's kind of a paradigmatic, right? He's a sample of how it can work. So the sutra is very much applicable to real life situations today, this afternoon, this evening, on the phone with our daughters, right? Tomorrow morning on the freeway with our fellow fun seekers on vacation on a weekend, and then Monday with our bosses, or with our employees. You can apply these principles immediately. So here's our sutra. That's what it is. 10 grounds. Bodhisattva's path. Starts with the Bodhi resolve, this wish to wake up, and the way that you wake up is encountering angry living beings, greedy living beings, deluded living beings, poor, frightened, sad, trembling, anxious living beings who you just have to, encourage and give them a hug and give them a cookie and take them across. So that's what it is. And it's, you might say, well, if it's so good, where's it been? How come nobody else is talking about the Avatamsaka Sutra? Well, the difference is this teacher, Master Shen Hua, spent 9 years. Wow, he spent 9 years in the whole sutra. We spent 9 years on one chapter. How about that? Of course, he did it every night and twice on Saturday. We do it once a week. But he said, this is important. Important, he said. 9 years, every night for an hour and a half. Opened it up, line by line, explained it for us. And then when the lecture was over, he'd say, you all get that much? What did I just say? Ashurva, I was, well, you got to take notes because I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot to make sure you heard what I said. He would quiz us, which no Chinese lecturing monk would ever do. In the Chinese style, the lecturer is kind of untouchable. And, Master Hua just broke down the proscenium arch. He just broke down the barrier. And he would, Thursday nights, it was the students' turn to lecture at the same text. And you'd think, oh, that's when Master Hua took a break, right? Took a vacation. No, he would come listen to the sutra, to the student lectures. How horrible that was, You have nothing to say about the sutra because you were nodding out during the lecture. And he would be, listening closely to every word you said. Oh my. So he really meant it. He wanted people to pay attention, to get this, because it was important. So here we are, bringing it to life. And when people hear it in English, they go, gee, that's really interesting. Huh. Glad it was finally translated. So that's what we're about. And we're all in this work. This is an ongoing experiment in weekly translations of ancient wisdom, bringing them up to date. So what's happening? Okay, we're on section 8 out of 10, called the eighth ground. And we're just at the very beginning. Last week, if you turn back to page 2 and 3, you'll see the start. Right? And where does it take us? It takes us into the heavens, which in the Buddhist cosmology is a place that is densely populated. And there's not just one. It's not that that's heaven, right? There's multiple layers and layers of heavens, all with their respective citizens. And each of those citizens, they're collectively known as devas. Deva is a Sanskrit word. The Chinese equivalent is tian, which is the same word as sky, interestingly. So tian ren, sky people. So devas are beings who live in the sky. We are ren genderen. We are human beings living here on a planet which is not exactly the same as how the Buddha describes it, but definitely we're terrestrial, and devas are celestial. They're in the sky. And there's many, many flavors of devas. So the devas, the kings of devas and all the various multitudes of devas heard the seventh ground and were very happy. And so what do when devas are happy? According to the sutra, they start to give things. It triggers their generosity. They want to give offerings. They want to share the good things that they have and make a relationship with the Buddha. When you make an offering, there's a donor, there's a receiver, and there's a gift. And the donors want to connect with the recipients, and the receivers, when you get nice stuff, you feel happy, stuff you like. Otherwise, if that were not true, we wouldn't be so head over heels about shopping, right? Retail therapy. So we see it in the heavens, and the sutra's full of it. What do? The devas make stuff fall. They throw it up in the air. They scatter like that, and it rains down. Limitlessly many thousands of kinds of flowers, streamers, canopies, banners, incense, garlands, gems, garments, all of them decorated with special celestial gems. Then there's music. Oh my goodness, the music. This is where we ended last week, talking about the music in the heavens. Deva maidens in unison played music from the heavens, serenading on all sides various wondrous sounds as an offering to the Buddha and his disciples. And then they started to sing. Hosanna in the highest, right? Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Y'all know that one? That's called the doxology. Praise Him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Mother, Son, and Holy Ghost. Praise Gaia. Praise her, right? Why is it a hymn? So, yeah, that's called the doxology, and that's kind of the standard. Every Sunday you get to sing it, kind of praise, in the Methodist tradition. I don't know if it's true in other Protestant tradition. I suspect so. Doxology is one. But sacred music and praise music is one of the places where the tradition that I was educated in really shines. The Methodist hymnal is this thick songbook. And my goodness, we do well with our songs as Methodists. So there is a movement now in the West that, it's funny, you kind of have to be in it to know about it. But once you're in it, it's huge. It's called Contemporary Christian Music, CCM. And if you want to hear it, just get in your car, head east. Put yourself on Highway 80 and go east and turn on your radio. Turn your radio on, turn your radio on, right? And as you're going across the country, oh my goodness, station after station after station. When you get out in Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, heading east, oh my goodness. You just run into all these stations playing contemporary Christian music. And that music is essentially praise music. That's what it's about. And it's about praising the glory of God and Jesus, His Son. And there's all flavors. There's rock and roll, there's pop, there's country, but the purpose of it all, no matter what kind of idiom the music is coming, how many drums they have and how loud it is, it's to praise. And it's, it has its stars, has its top 40, and it's a really mature and wealthy genre of music. Lots and lots of money, contemporary Christian music. So it has its bands, and it's great. Now, that is separate from gospel. Gospel is something else again. Gospel is the church side of praise music. And goodness, that is a mature and rich and wonderful tradition of praise music that is overtly in the church. The contemporary side of contemporary Christian music has to do with the instruments that are played and the kinds of songs. So, in other words, in contemporary modern Christianity in 2017, there is abundant music. Wow. And it's, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to like. It's magnificent tradition. What about Buddhism? What about Buddhism? Well, our Bodhisattva, who's riding an elephant up here, our camera can't quite turn to get there. It might not make it back, but can you? Are you up to it, Mr. Cameraman? I think so. There we go. Luckily, he's on a tripod. Camera is now turning to that Bodhisattva with an elephant. His name is, what is it? 他叫什么名字? Manjushri. No, that's the lion. What's the name? Oh, you guys, you're too slow. The monk answered first. You missed 5 points. You could have had 5. That's Samantabhadra Puxian Pusa. Puxian Pusa. He is the Bodhisattva who is best known for his practices. You see, he's holding a flower, a lotus, and he's riding on an elephant, and the elephant's on top of a dragon, but that's just the way our windows worked out. Ordinarily, the elephant, by the way, has 6 tusks, and he's surrounded by other elephants as well. How interesting. So we have large, peaceful elephant Dharma protectors in Buddhism. Just show the one to the left there, Alan. That's Manjushri. Manjushri Bodhisattva is riding on a lion, and he's got a sword in his hand, as well as a blue lotus. And his lion, the lion indicates courage, fearlessness. The elephant indicates steadfast and deep resources. Okay? Manjushri is the Bodhisattva with the greatest wisdom. Samantabhadra Puxian is the Bodhisattva with the greatest practices. All right? Great, thank you. So, Samantabhadra is kind of the theoretical, he's the one who sets out the paradigm. How do you cultivate? How do you make the Bodhi resolve you want to become a Buddha? How do you do it? Samantabhadra Bodhisattva says 10 steps. I'll give you 10. First step is to bow. You prostrate yourself. You put your head at the same level as your heart. That's key, because the biggest obstacle to awakening is the me in the middle. That's the cave I was talking about, this dark cave where we're safe, right? But guess what? We're broken and cut off from everything around us. Bowing helps you see through that illusory me in the middle. But step number two, as explained by Samantabhadra, what does he say? Cheng Zan Ru Lai, praise the Tathagata. Praise. Exactly what we were talking about in contemporary Christian practice and in traditional Christian practice. Praising, right? Here's Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, the guy who knows how to practice, how to walk the Bodhisattva path, saying, yep, praise. Praise the thus come one. Praise Buddha from all heavenly, yeah, you know. Upon the earth below the sky, the Buddha has no peer, right? There it is, praise. Amitabha's body is the color of gold. The splendor of his hallmarks has no peer. So we do. We have lots of praises, right? We have, let's see, how does it go? Let's see, Jing Jing Hua, Jing Jing Fa Shen Fo, oh, Jing Jing Fa Shen Fo, Jing Jing Fa Shen Pi Lu Jena Fo, right? The Chinese tradition is full of praises. We just don't, somehow we kind of, it's like, well, that's not, that's not the real thing. Yeah, it's the real thing. It's what we do. And it's necessary to the Bodhisattva path. What's the advantage of praising the Buddha is you get a relationship with this being, and like the bowing, the purpose of the bowing is what it does to you. It's not that by bowing to the Buddha is happier with you if you bow to him. Nah, the Buddha's fine whether or not you like him or not, right? It's what it does to you. When you praise, what does it do to you? It opens up a space in your sense that you are the center. You're the important part of the world. Okay? Who thinks that way? Well, pretty much every child. Raised by kind-hearted parents, oh my goodness. I was in Sydney just already, a month ago. Can't believe it. And I spent some quality time on a weekend with an 8-month-old. That 8-month-old, cute little girl, just apple of mother's eye and the gleam in dad's eye. She was the center of the world. Oh my goodness. I'd never spent a weekend with parents who were trying to raise an 8-month-old. And whoa, that's the world. If you're expecting, if you've raised kids, you know better than I do. I never raised kids. But if you're expecting, get ready. Your needs come last. The child needs you now or else. Oh, that noise fills the universe, and that kid is just, suddenly the child fills the apartment. And in this house where I was, there were grandparents. There were 4 grown-up adults whose lives centered around this little lump. And the lump made big noises, big stinks. This little body makes huge stinks. And you can't feed her. I don't want any food. I only want one kind of food, and that's mom, And it's like, you want to take the kid anywhere? Get the car seat. Oh, the car seat gets strapped in, and the kid gets strapped into the car seat. And if the kid gets out of the car seat, it's into the stroller. Oh, get the stroller. The stroller has to be set up just then. Oh, too much sun. Put the little visor over the kids. Oh, watch out, too many. Oh, staircase. Oh, no, we got to go up the stairs, Of course, the kid grows up thinking they're the center of the world, because they are. That's what you learn if you're a kid with good parents, is the kid's the center, because they're helpless. They're totally helpless. And without the parents taking every single, every expression on the baby's face is precious. Without that, oh man, the kid would be miserable, or maladjusted. Think of all the money you'd spend in therapy later, if the kid didn't get the parents. So, how do you unlearn that? You praise someone else. Right? And this is key, I think. What if it's not real? Can you praise if you don't feel it? That's a question. Originally, there's the founder, or the sage, or the prophet, or the arhat, or the bodhisattva, or if you're lucky enough, the Buddha, and face to face with somebody with that much light, somebody with that much magnetism, somebody whose eyes shine that way, you feel it. And if, let's just say, bring it down to earth, if somebody walked in the back of the Buddha hall and came in and sat down, someone who had cut off desire, that's our language, somebody who had truly turned around all of their outflows, all of that sense that somehow just around the corner is the one I'm waiting for, that I might meet my soulmate tonight, tomorrow, next week, If you'd taken all of that and brought it back in and said, no, maybe I'm the soulmate that, empty space has been waiting for, but I won't know until I reclaim all my light and energy. Somebody had done that, we would all go, whoop. We would all feel it, right? Somebody who was completely off the radar and weren't broadcasting any of those I'm looking vibes, right? Where are those the heaviest? Go to a singles bar. I'm not suggesting you go to a singles bar, all right? Go to a bowling alley, what the hell, Go to a prom, Go to the farmer's market, I don't care, If I remember, I've been a monk for 41 years, and I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, someday I'm going to meet the one. And what are those thoughts? That's what empty space is full of, is people looking for a mate. What is it? It's primal. That's called continuation of the species, right? It's primal. And there's an age when it really begins, and I don't know if it ever ends, And what does it do? It sells lots of movie tickets, sells lots of novels, lots of magazines, Cosmopolitan magazine, right? All about, mating rituals. Watch the birds. Oh my goodness, When it's time, watch the horses, watch the deer. Oh, gee whiz. Go live in the Santa Cruz Redwoods, and when it's the right time of the year, the bucks come down out of the mountains and look for the does. Cherchez les femmes. And oh my God, the does suddenly get crazy. They're running from place to place because right behind them is this large deer with a big rack of horns, And the rest of the time, they're minding their own business, very calm and mellow. Will come mating season and, crazy. So, right. Okay. Suppose somebody walks in for whom that issue is solved. What would they seem? They would seem very self-possessed, very calm, very mellow, very tranquil. And the flames are extinguished, right? The embers are cold. And that person would seem, on one hand, you might say we wouldn't notice them. They just slip right through. And then when you saw them, you'd go, oh, right. So if you meet a spiritual teacher who's flashing, chances are the embers are still mighty hot. Somebody who's like, wants you to notice them, somebody who advertises themselves. We're not talking about the same thing. Okay, so how much the more so? The Buddha. The Buddha has turned it all around and uncovered his nature. And so what do you do when you see him? You go, oh, I'd like to be like that. Praise Buddha, from all blessings flow. You praise him. You notice, you bow to them. You say, I want to be like you when I grow up. The praise part is real. Okay, what about us? That's called 佛后. There's 佛前 and 佛后. And there's also 佛住世, right? We're behind the Buddha, we're in front of the Buddha, after the Buddha, and before the Buddha, after the Buddha. Or when the Buddha's in the world, but we're after the Buddha. Or you could extend it and say the Buddha hasn't come yet, we're before the Buddha. But we're told to praise. Do you make it up? Yeah, pretty much. How many entire churches are built around a story about an echo? An echo of an echo. 2,600 years ago, there was this prince. We tell the story, and saw a bright star at midnight, awoke to the way, became the Buddha. Well, that story is still alive, Story of Jesus of Nazareth is still alive, still bouncing around. Oh, listen to a devout Muslim talk about the Prophet Muhammad, of blessed memory, say, whose name is praised. 5 times a day they go praise. Islam is completely a religion of praise. You praise the Prophet Muhammad, Allah. So that's good. That's what people do. And the entire structure is built. This whole structure is built around praising. Well, it's a memory. And the further away you get from the actual being, kind of the harder you have to work to get the praise going. So look at these images, right? We've got golden Buddha images here. And in the Vietnamese tradition, you can't see it, and I'm not going to ask the camera to turn, but in the back there's a white Guan Yin. Guan Yin Bodhisattva in the Vietnamese tradition is white plaster. And people look at, oh, it's so compassionate, they say, So the question would be, can you praise if you're not personally moved by the personal presence? Yeah, it's an issue. If you have to be told the story somehow. So, in America, this is a really interesting cultural issue, isn't it? How do we kindle the story to make the Buddha and Bodhisattvas praiseworthy? Praiseworthy. If you're not introduced to the tradition by who? Parents, elders, teachers, classmates, right? That's interesting issue. We haven't really explored that. Somebody has to tell you the story. Okay? Here's a rubber hits the road kind of truth about that, which is what? In America right now, we come to Buddhism by and large because we like to meditate. Mindfulness is the current buzzword. There's a mindfulness industry starting up. America turns everything into a product that we can sell. The heart of that is real, meditation. When you go to Buddhist Asia, people meditate sometimes, but they recite the Buddha's name all the time. The Pure Land tradition in the Chinese Mahayana is a praise tradition. We praise Amitabha, Namo Amitofo, right? All day long in this building, people go Amitofo. 4 words, Amitabha, the Buddha's name. Okay, all day long. Pick up the telephone, Amitofo, right? Say goodbye. All day long. Praise. Step outside of the Chinese Mahayana and people go, you say Amitofo, they go, excuse me? Gesundheit. Did you sneeze? Amitofo. They don't know, they have no idea, they haven't heard the story. So the praise tradition is based on telling a story. Why? Because we don't have the Buddha in front of us. The closer we get to the Buddha, never mind the story, you yourself go, whoa, that's beautiful, or that's spectacular, or that's magnificent. Right? So, interesting. The second vow of Samantabhadra doesn't quite have the juice that some of the other vows do, because why? It's a praise tradition, and in this country right now, we're not quite in the line of direct experience that generates the feeling of being praiseworthy. We have to kind of tell the story before people go, oh, that's a good story. You know. So praise doesn't quite have it here. Christianity, for example, as a praise tradition, is largely rooted in the need to hear the story. Okay? Jesus died for your sins. Wash them clean in the blood of the Lamb. Okay? Well, that story really works for a certain population. Definitely does. But beyond that story, there's not a lot. You hand people a Bible and it seems dated, pretty much. Although, you can make it come alive easily, the same way we're making these ancient texts. But here we are, let's pin it down. Another rubber hits the road kind of experience is, here's a teacher who entered nirvana 22 years ago. Tomorrow is the day that we observe that passing, that demise. 22 years after this teacher lived, and he was alive and accessible to Westerners since 1962, from 62 to 95, so 30 plus years. And right this minute, we are engaged in telling his story in the West. His story from 1918 when he was born to 1949 when he was in China, that story has been told. The story of 1949 to 1961 when he was in Hong Kong has been told. But 1962 to 1995 and then to the present is being told. We're in that process. We're compiling his biography. So storytelling, right? We're telling that story. And the notion is that as people hear that story, if we're effective in communicating our personal experiences, that story will be worthy of praise, praiseworthy. People will get excited to know more about this teacher, why he did what he did, one piece of which is embodied in this text. So, praise. Praise the Buddha. Bodhisattva. Hallelujah. Right? Yeah. So it's a story. The all-seeing honored one who is twice made complete displays his spiritual abilities because he empathizes with sentient beings, allowing those present to hear the Deva's music with marvelous sounds arising on every side. One of the aspects of being in the heavens, plural, is music. Oh boy, the music of the spheres. And we mentioned last week that there are Western composers who some say had ears tuned to the sound, to otherworldly sounds. Here's another example: the Sanskrit language, the language of Sanskritam, is said to be a Deva's language, Devanagari, right? The writing of the gods. When you write Sanskrit, it's said to be the Deva's own writing, God's writing, and it's there are schools of Sanskrit learning that the first thing you do before you open your textbooks is you praise Sanskrit. You sing a song of praise, thanking the Devas for giving us this perfect language. Because Sanskrit as a system has very, very, very few exceptions. The system contains, not like English, which is as many exceptions as there are rules. So it's interesting. I've been sitting in the room with Pandits who they do the classical thing, and before you open the class, you sing a praise of Sanskrit, the perfect language. And then that prepares you, and it invokes the God's awareness of what you're doing. They come and bless you as you embark on your language lesson. How about that? That's a very interesting idea. So, Devas, the place where humans and gods touch. Here's our sutra. The sutra is saying, yup, gods are there. Happy because the Buddha's explaining the Avatamsaka. We're talking to gods. The God talk. Okay? When the gods show up, what do? Bring their music with them. They play their music, and it's superb music. When you hear it, it makes your ears tingle. Not like this. It's different. Threaten you with anybody's ears tingling, right? No tingle, right? Not yet. Speaking of New Yorker cartoons, I saw a great New Yorker cartoon. It was a performer standing at the microphone, and he said, I'm going to now perform an audience request. And his banjo was laid flat on the floor, and he was holding a sledgehammer in his hand. Audience request, smash the banjo. Oh, I know that one. You know, smash the banjo, da 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 da. So you're going to smash the banjo. Banjo jokes are kind of, they're just one step above puns, right? So here are the gods, happy because the Buddha's going to speak the next step of the Avatamsaka Sutra's 10 grounds, 8th ground. What happens next? Are we ready? Paragraph 2, ready? 欲一毛断百千亿，哪有他国为陈述？哪有他国为陈述？如是无量诸如来，于中安住说妙法。Upon the tip of a single hair are thus come ones, within their countries numbering 100,000s of kotis, of nayutas of dust motes in number, each one serene and explaining the wondrous Dharma. Okay, we're going to go on down. We're going to go down. Let's do the whole thing. I want people to get this whole flavor. 一毛空内无量刹，各有四洲几大海。须弥铁微亦复然，悉见在中无破碍。以貌断处有六趣，三种恶道即人天。诸龙神众而修罗，各虽自业受果报。于彼一切茶度中，悉有如来演妙音。随顺一切众生心，未转最上净法轮。Okay, here we go. If people want to read with me, feel free. It's nice to hear it together. We're going to start with within a single hair pore. This is the third paragraph. Here we go together. Within a single hair pore of the Buddhas are countless lands, each with 4 continents and the vast oceans. There are also iron ring mountains encircling Sumeru. All appear within it without stress or pressure. In the space of a hair tip appear the 6 destinies, the 3 kinds of evil paths, as well as humans and devas, dragons and spirits and multitudes of asuras, all undergoing retribution in accord with their karma. Within each one of these lands, there are Tathagatas proclaiming in a wondrous voice, following the thoughts of each living being, and turning the sublime and pure Dharma wheel for them. Okay, these are 4 verses, all on a single topic, and that topic is describing a world system. It gets cosmic immediately. Okay, take a step back. We're about to hear the Buddha explain the 8th ground, all right? And what has happened first is the devas show up and make music. They're happy. Wherever they're happy, they make offerings. Their offerings included all those things we heard about last week. We heard about all the flowers, streamers, canopies, banners, etc. Then they make music. So there's a kind of a setting for it. Okay, immediately the sutra kind of dives into the macro. Okay, we've gone to I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Dives into the micro. The macro is the setting where the devas are showering all these wonderful things. Our ears are hearing deva music, and then the sutra goes suddenly into a tiny realm and expands it. Very much like if you've ever looked into a microscope and seen something that you can't see without the glass, without the magnification powers of the microscope. The sutra is the microscope at this point. And it's opening up a tiny world into a vast sphere. And the description is something we've heard before in other parts of the sutra. And so it's a very smooth transition. Because we enjoy movies that have, computer graphics, this is not unacceptable. It's not too bizarre to imagine to kind of go deeply into something and have it open and expand and expand and expand. Medical science does this all the time. You get a diagnosis of a bacterial infection. We get a blood test. Okay? We look at DNA, right? DNA sequencing, we can tell all kinds of things about your individual past just from a swab inside your cheek, right? You take a cotton swab and they can tell you about your past lives. Did you grow up in Africa? Did you grow up in India, China? Did your ancestors come from there? They can tell by going into this tiny world. How about that? That's a perfect analogy. Have anybody ever done that and researched their genealogy? Right? You can do that. Just go online. If you subscribe, you send them money. They send you a cotton swab and instructions, and you get some saliva, and that's all they need. And you wrap it up and send it away, and you get a report a month later telling you how many generations back and where you came from. So think about generations. What is it? It's people. Your mom had a very full life. Her mom had a very full life, full of joy, full of sorrow, full of you, in the future, and so forth. They went through terror. They went through delight. They slept. They ate. They got sick. They recovered. They traveled. Big worlds opened up, and yet we know it as saliva. Yeah? We know it as a cotton swab that you mail in. And somehow they take the sequencing. They can find out what is your particular building block connection as it links in. And from that, worlds open up. And the stories come forth. Okay, got it? Got that notion? Take a look. Let's go up to second paragraph. On the tip of a single hair, what is that? Something very small. Okay, you all got one? I got one right here. Here's a tiny hair, right? My wrist. Just tiny. A single hair is really small. It fades out to where I can't see it at all. But there it is. Just beep. Okay, there's a tiny hair. Think of that. On the tip of a single hair are what? Buddhas. A thus come one is a Tathagata, a Buddha. And where you find a Buddha, you find Buddha's lands, kshetras. Within the countries where the Buddhas live, how many? 100,000 of kotis nayutas. Those are Sanskrit numerals. Zeros. Think 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's how many of dust motes. What's a dust mote? A dust mote is a particle floating in space right now. Tiny. How many Buddhas in how many lands on the tip of that hair? Hundreds of thousands of kotis of nayutas of dust motes. So a dust mote is a tiny particle, it means you can count a lot of them. And so you start adding up the zeros, and all those Buddhas are doing something. They're really there. What are they doing? They are anju shuo miaofa. They are serene and doing what Buddhists do, which is speaking Dharma. Okay, wow, we've just had a gene sequencing. In something tiny, this hair tip, comes something vast. Buddhas in countries in vast numbers. Anju, peacefully, harmoniously existing and speaking Dharma. Okay, what have we got? We got a cosmology. We went into something tiny and expanded something huge. Avatamsaka Sutra. There we go. Why are they doing this? Well, let's find out. Within a single hair pore of the Buddhas are countless lands, each with, and here's a description of the Buddha's worlds, how the Buddha describes worlds. 4 continents, vast oceans, iron ring mountains surrounding the oceans, with Mount Sumeru in the middle, and all of this vast landscape exists Xi Jian Sai Zhong Wu Po Ai. Every bit of this exists without jumbling up, obstructing, pressuring, pushing each other around. Okay, this is called the vast and great coexists simultaneously with the minute without any obstruction. Avatamsaka. Where did it start? It started with a hair pore, okay? Hair pore time, okay? I can't even see them, they're too small, but for sure I got them. And you want to see them? Go sweat, right? Where does the sweat come from when you're on the treadmill? When you're jogging? It comes from your hair pores, from the skin pores, okay? So there you go, get that microscope. Oh, sure enough, you know, there's lots of little holes in your skin. How it breathes, right? Skin is not solid. It's got these little holes, tiny, tiny. So why? Means small. Small. Sutra says, in a small place are countless Buddha lands. And then it goes on to describe what one of those lands is like. And this is a standard description. Mount Sumeru in the middle, 4 continents, oceans around it, iron mountains boundarying it, making the boundaries of it. That's a Buddha's world. That's a world system. We are, according to the Buddha, currently in one of those. We're on one continent, the southern one, called Jambudvipa. Nanjambudro, that's where our world is. Okay, so I don't see it, maybe you don't see it, maybe you do see it, but that's the way the Buddha sees it. And the sutra says this is how it is. But it's big. And it's in a hair pore, and there are thousands of them, and they don't push each other out of line. They're all there simultaneous. Okay, what is that called? That's called an inconceivable realm. Sarah? Microphone. Sarah's going to make trouble. Yeah, no, she's not.
Easy question, I think.
Okay.
Easy question, but it's, I assume that the image of the hair pore is to get in our minds how many Buddhas and how they take up all this space, but I mean, the dumb question that goes in your head is like, what are these Buddhas doing on a hair pore?
Uh-huh.
Why do they want to hang out at a hair pore?
Right.
So I'm assuming that it's more like an image to help you visualize it, and that they're not just on your hair pores. It becomes very, I think people hearing this must sometimes think like, why do I have all these? I don't want all these Buddhas on my hair pores.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Good question. She's not making trouble after all. She is helping. I think, now I got I don't say educated guess. My guess, why you left out the hair tips, Sarah. Why tips of hairs, right? Okay, why hair tips and hair pores and skin pores? It's because you got them. That's available to you. It's just to represent. It's just to represent small. You could just say in the smallest thing, but everybody would interpret that differently. So as long as you're a sentient, living, breathing being, you got a hair pore, and you probably have skin pore, and you have hair. So it's just meant to say small, I think, and readily available. Okay, other sutras don't do this. What do they say? They say Ganges River sands. Okay, you ever seen the Ganges? Well, you have, right? No? Ever seen the Ganges? Anybody seen the Ganges? What's it like, Roberto? What's the sand like? You haven't seen the sand, okay.
I remember seeing other things, but not particularly sand.
Okay.
Although there was sand.
There's sand. The
Yes.
key word, fine.
Yeah.
It's fine sand. It's not coarse, rough sand.
It was sand.
It was wet. How many drops you could use drops of river in the Ganges, right?
There was sand, but
There was sand.
It was not in. It depends on where in the Ganges you are, because if you go closer to the source,
Up to the source, Rishikesh.
then you can see some sand. But when you get to
Varanasi.
it's just.
You see more tin cans and plastic bags now.
Oh, I don't want to tell you all the things that you can
Rubber
see
clips and ties and
floating on the Ganges.
the occasional
and
dead
also-
body, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The sutras, like the Vajra, the Vajra Prajna Paramita, says Heng Sure in number like Ganges river sands, because, as I understand it, they're very fine and there's a lot. If they're coarse, there's fewer, right? Same space, fewer particles. Ganges river sands is supposed to be very, very like face powder. That's what So, that's another one. The Avatamsaka uses three things: skin pores, hair tips, and dust motes. Dust particles. If we were, what would we do? We'd probably say the number of sands in Arizona or the Mojave Desert, equal a number to the dust motes in Death Valley or something like that. Yeah. Something like that. So, Sarah, good enough? Meaning common. Drawn from nature. And common. So, number 3, hair tip, oh my goodness, another challenging and inconceivable state. In the space of a hair tip appear the turning wheel of reincarnation, of rebirth. The 6 destinies. Okay, 3 evil, unhappy, 3 wholesome, less evil. All mortal, all 6 are mortal. The 3 kinds of evil paths, as well as humans, devas, dragons, spirits, and lots of asuras. All 6 undergoing retribution in accord with their karma. So, someone can look at this and go, nonsense, or no way, or says who, or I never seen that, prove it. Well, I don't have to prove it to you. You get enlightened and tell us about it, because you'll see it. As soon as your eyes, this limited eye consciousness opens up. So until that time, we have to take it from the Buddha. I can't prove it. But I can't disprove it either. And the sutras say it's so. Right? So I'm going to reserve my judgment and not ask myself to say, oh, it's true or it's false. Just say there's a lot more to learn. And until what was the fruit fly chromosome was sequenced, we didn't know about DNA. Right? And then for some reason the fruit fly was sequenced because there's I think they're very, very regular. A million fruit flies, the Drosophila fruit fly, has a very regular and repeatable sequence. There's very few variations. I think that's why it was always, they worked on fruit flies, But now we know, and DNA is used in jurisprudence, it's used in trials, it's used in all kinds of applications now. So that's within our lifetime. That's happened. So who's to say that at some point we won't be able to discover Mount Sumeru? And that this vast cycle of rebirth from hells, ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, devas won't be visible to ordinary folks. The story goes, cleanse your vision and you will see them. We have stuff in the way of seeing this. And yet, 2,600 years of tests, people who've awoken, people who wake up say, yep, it's right there. You don't have to go looking, it's closer than we know. Just clean your mirrors. Polish your inner eyeglasses, and this will be visible to you because it's happening right this minute. Okay, and within each of these lands, there are Buddhas proclaiming in a wondrous voice, following the thoughts of every living being, turning the Dharma wheel for them. Buddhas speak the Dharma not because they want to be heard, not because they're selling books, not because they hope it'll be on YouTube someday with lots of likes, but because when they see an opportunity to say it according to how you can hear it, they'll speak it for you so you can wake up. They're there handing out keys to unlock our lock of ignorance. They're handing out medicine to cure our disease of delusion. Okay, Buddhas speak Dharma when the time is right so we can hear it and wake up. So, okay, it's interesting, right? Suddenly it dove into the cosmic. From devas making offerings, which was what happens before the Buddha speaks the Dharma, suddenly we got this, whoa, we're opening up this tiny world to show how vast it is. We've been given one of what are called the 10 doorways, the 10 mysterious doorways, Shi Shuanman, they call them, which is what the vast and the minute interpenetrate without obstruction. 广大悉为无上圆融无碍. That's one of the principles that the Avatamsaka is constantly expounding, that the vast and the minute merge. So when you think about that, it's like, I don't see it, but that's not the sutra's fault. That's my, it's my lack of clarity. So when I polish up my lenses, I'll see that. Okay. Now, if we think about it, that's kind of an environmental statement. The claim in the sutra is about space. It's a spatial problem. Something very big existing on something very tiny. All that activity is going on right here. Right on my hair tip, right on my skin pore, right in a dust mote. Vast. Beyond numbering. And I wanted to illustrate it. I was raised Methodist, part of the Protestant tradition from Northern Europe. And the Protestant tradition came about as a reaction to the Roman Catholic tradition. For years, the Roman Catholic tradition was the only show in town. And Roman Catholics are what are called high church. Okay? Even to this day, you set foot in a self-respecting cathedral, especially one that was built before the 20th century, and you enter into this world of light and humanity, interacting with angels, interacting with devils and saints and miracles, and Jesus suffering like a human being. And those images are meant to move you. But most of all, my experience inside, let's say, a substantial Catholic cathedral and, High Church Episcopalian, Anglican cathedral, is one of immense, vibrant, animated life. The life in a cathedral is dense and rich. And my place in it is to kind of humble myself and get in line. Because why? The angels are vast and big. And they're there struggling with the devil to keep us safe and to keep us, on the way to heaven. Okay? Now, I'm simplifying, and I'm speaking as an outsider. If you're in the tradition, I apologize. This is, I'm misrepresenting it with every word, right? And it's not how it's taught. But compared to my experience as a Protestant Christian Methodist, oh my goodness, one word, sterile, devoid of animated life. Because why? It's on purpose. What happened in the Protestant Reformation was an attempt to throw out all that stuff, starting with the Pope. Didn't want him. Pope was too powerful, too big. Get rid of the Pope. Get rid of his ring that you had to kiss. Get rid of his high hat that you had to bow down to. Get rid of all the gold. Get rid of his ability to send you both to hell and to jail, or to kill you, because he was both the power of politics and the power of the church in one person. Okay, this is back before the Reformation. Okay. And you get rid of the bishops, and you get rid of the cardinals, and you get rid of the archbishops, and you get rid of the priests, and you get rid of Jesus on the cross. Tear it all down. These are called iconoclasts. They don't want the icons. Get rid of that stuff. Keep one thing. You keep the Gospels, the Logos, the Word of Jesus and His apostles. That's what you keep. The Word. That's where I was raised. And you go into a church that develops around that, and you have a cross, but the humanity's gone. Take Jesus down. He's not suffering there. Okay? Get rid of those stained glass windows with all the saints and all the stories, and you replace it with what? Colored glass. Colored glass. And you get rid of all of that priesthood in between, all that structure. And what do you have? You got the preacher. The preacher's there to praise Jesus. And you have a very lovely set of songs allowing you to praise God from whom all blessings flow. Right? And that's it. And it was, now, for the sake of the story, I'm dramatizing, right? And by listening to the way I'm explaining it, Protestant Christianity doesn't sound very attractive. It's a wonderful tradition. And certainly the Pope needed to have his sails trimmed, The Holy Roman Empire was excessive. And I am a great fan of the Roman Catholic Church, what I learned about it. And I'm not inside it, so, I need to be careful of what I say. And I mean no disrespect. But historically, the Protestant Reformation was an attempt to right-size the Catholic Church, because it was the only game. And oh my, lots of blood was spilled. Lots of destruction happened. But Christianity developed another house. traditional Roman Catholicism and the new revolutionary Protestant Reformation. So I'm, collapsing all that into a couple sentences. But the feeling inside my Methodist church was not vibrant and full of life. It was severely constricted to the Bible and the New Testament, the Gospels. Okay, that came alive in wonderful ways, and lots of living beings are saved that way, and I respect it a lot. But it was certainly a different feeling. All right, switch over to Buddhism coming into North America, where we are right now. Also Australia, also Europe, also Latin America, right? Buddhism coming to the West. And what did we start with? We started with Protestant Buddhism, Zazen. The Japanese tradition took all Buddhism and shrunk it down to Shikantaza, Shiguandatsu. Only pay attention to your sitting. This is the Buddha. Your posture is the Buddha. They even put a rock in the center of the room, to represent what? The mind, I guess? So, before you wake it up. Right? So, okay, and then comes, guess what? The Chinese Mahayana. Look at the dragons. Look at the lions. Look at the elephants. Look at the bodhisattvas. Look at the dharma protectors. Look at the devas. Look at the dragons everywhere you look. We are in the high church of the Mahayana in this room. Master Hsuan Hua brought us the Roman Catholic equivalent of Roman Catholicism in the Christian tradition, where dragons, ghosts, gods, tree spirits, wheel-turning sage kings, worlds existing within worlds, nature is reanimated. And, interestingly, as we apply it, we move closer to nature that we usually only exploit. If you take the Protestant view of nature and apply it to the world around you, the only thing that matters is humanity. Humans are absolutely the dominant species, and the world is here for us to consume. Because why? It's dead. Right? Not that Roman Catholics did much of a better job, but their world was animated. But at least in Roman Catholicism, you could believe in a afterlife. There was a world there that was full of life, because you'd seen it from heaven on down. Okay? My Protestant Christian Methodist upbringing gave me a world that was there to consume. Wasn't alive. Animals had no soul. Right? They weren't alive. They were there to eat and sell. Okay? So, now, that's painting with a huge brushstroke, right? And there are stories within stories. But let me say, when I hear about 6 paths of rebirth appearing within a single hair pore of the Buddhas, and I look into a microscope and see bacteria and amoeba attracting each other and splitting and becoming sophisticated systems that then split and become, I go, I think this is a better natural model. I get it. And what it does to me is the key. It puts me into a web of life that requires me to find my own ethical decision-making process so that I can live gracefully, effectively, and compassionately in the midst of other life that wants to live gracefully, effectively, compassionately. That's key. It's what this view in the Avatamsaka that we just saw, it gives me Buddhas speaking Dharma for me so I can wake up. And what are Buddhas? Buddhas are compassionate and wise. They're not out to rape and pillage and consume and destroy and tear down and replace everything else in their model. Right? Not. It says, yeah, we are there to wake everybody up so we can live together in harmony, interpenetrating without obstruction. I like that model. That's an environmental ethic I can live with. Not one that puts humanity, particularly white male humanity, mind you, there to destroy everything, denying humans' impact on the planet. That's gross and ignorant and unsustainable. There is no doubt in my mind that male white European humanity has destroyed and put us in imbalance that threatens the existence of the whole. Right? The idea that somebody owns the oil under the ground, nobody owns that oil. It doesn't belong to British Petroleum or Exxon or Atlantic Richfield. It doesn't. It's not ours. And the more we pull it out of the ground, the shorter our lifespans, the shorter our existence. No doubt about it. So, here is a view that says, can't we all get along? If the answer is no, we are here at our peril. We're not going to last. And we're not lasting. Pretty quick, there's going to be news from the north that the Greenland ice shelf has shifted in a way that is irrevocable. We're about to fish out the oceans. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest living being on the planet. I live every year 600 miles from the Great Barrier Reef, maybe 800 miles. It's in northern Queensland, and it's the largest living being on the planet. Coral reefs are living beings. They're little bivalves, and they live, and they make these, the coral that you see is their home, right? In 2015 and 2016, there were two what are called bleaching events where without any warning and uncontrollably, all that coral died. The little tiny living beings that make those little white houses died. And faster than any scientist expected. This was the news this week. They said they had the report finally that they're 2 years. And usually a bleaching event might happen once in 100 years. Well, it happened twice back to back. And they say the Great Barrier Reef is dying. And the government of Queensland, the government of Australia tried to do these quick saves, patch them, say, it's too fast. It happened too fast, and we can't do anything about it. We breathe. The planet breathes through the reef. And there are millions of species that depend on that reef to live. And without the reef, over. That's a problem. That's a big, big, big problem. And it's happening right now. And if you are raising children, what you going to do? Those kids will have to learn new things that really quickly that humanity has not had to learn before because we've always had the planet, but we're not having the planet anymore. If you eat fish, right? Where the Chinese eat a lot of fish. China has a lot of mouths to feed. Where's the Chinese fishing fleet these days? Off the coast of Africa. That's where the fish are now. What are the Japanese going to do when you can't get fish anymore? There's not a lot of arable land in Japan. Mountains. They depend on the ocean. And those, it's going to be gone. If I were Japanese, if I were a Japanese entrepreneur, I would be looking for alternate food sources. If you can turn algae into food, Soylent Green. So yeah, it's an interesting time we're living in. And here is a model that says, let's find another way, because why? This is what's going on. Every hair pore has infinite worlds that we can't see. And it's alive. Everything's alive. Every breath we're taking in and transforming living beings. Wake up to it and live as if it mattered, because it does. It's us. We are it. Indistinguishably, inextricably. And it's this sense that I'm the only thing that matters, which is the problem. So here is a solution for sustainability. Because this is a picture of how things really are. And it's 3D. It's happening right so close to us. Every minute, every second, every breath. But who teaches it that way? Oh, you superstitious Buddhists. Okay. Anyway, it's about reanimating nature. Don't believe it? Go out in the mountains without a flashlight. At night. Oh boy, it's all awake and alive. Woohoo! Okie doke. So there we go. Let's transfer the merit, and I wanted to show some pictures of another place where life is alive. On your, you got a sheet there, dedication of merit, and you've also got a songbook, and the last page of the songbook has that dedication. Please make a wish that we live in the world before we lose it. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, I need to tell everybody that there is a trip to Europe being planned by the DRBA, and it's a trip in September, the last part of September to October, 3 weeks going to London, and then an extended trip in Poland, where Buddha Dharma is growing at a tremendous rate. And if you would like to know more about that, if you're online, Jerry, can you post the website? Do you know how to do that into the chat so that people online could find out more? And if you're not online at the moment, you're sitting here in the hall with me, come and find Jin Chuan, sure, and he'll tell you all about the trip. How do we know? Oh, here we go. Jason, raise your hand. This is Jason. Talk to Jason. Jason will tell you all about how to find about the trip too. Jason is one of our tireless administrators in putting the trip together. That's the way. So Jason's down here in front, and he'll put you on the website. The website will connect you to all the information, the dates, the costs, and what it's all about, and also an application. So just to let people know about that, happening in September of this year. If you're listening in Europe, we're coming to see you. So, okay, I'm going to go turn on the laptop, and if we could get the projector and the screen down. What I have here are some videos, and I haven't put them into a single video clip. I'm going to have to turn it on, turn it off as we go. But just in terms of making the point about the animated nature of reality and how magnificent, there, thank you, that's much better. How magnificent nature is when it's undisturbed. And now that's ironic because I'm feeding these animals. I'm disturbing them as we speak, right, as we watch. But in the southeastern corner of Queensland, there are patches in and around the developments where nature hasn't been touched, where it's just the way it was and has been for tens of thousands of years, if not longer. And I have this privilege every year of watching, of witnessing that happening. Okay? For example, rainbow lorikeet. Sleepy. This is a sleepy rainbow lorikeet who is waiting for his mate, or her mate. I don't know who is who. But these birds come in pairs, and they like my sunflower seeds. I offer them sunflower seeds. Okay, sleepy lorikeet. I think they take refuge on my rail here. It's a safe space, and so I see them resting like this, kind of sleepy. Okay, now this lorikeet's mate shows up, and this guy is full of life. It's time for lunch. Look at him. Or her. Yawn. Okay, hungry. I'm hungry. Where are the sunflower seeds? One of the more colorful birds in the world. Rainbow lorikeets. Checking me out. Waiting for lunch to show up. Hungry, hungry. Okay, so curious bird. Now, who shows up before the food comes out is a big neighbor. A turkey. In the very same form they have been in since the dinosaurs' times. Those turkeys totally survived. They are a very successful species in their environment, which is the Queensland bush, gum trees, gum tree forest. Look at that bird and tell me it's not a dinosaur. They show up twice a day for their food. Watch the dinosaur come and eat. Check the feet. Birdseed. They love the corn. So he's picking the corn kernels, the dried corn out of it. The turkeys are the only ones that like the dried corn. Everybody else is too hard, which works out fine because the lorikeets like the sunflower seeds. And away he goes. And she's back. All right. Sunflower seeds. Without turkeys intervening. That's their contented sound. With my eyes closed, I know they're happy. You have to earn their trust. They're very, what do you say? They spook easy. But if they trust you, and especially if you feed them, they'll get closer and closer. Okay, now there are other critters. This is a orb weaver spider. Rarely comes out in the daytime. Here he was in the daytime with his web, and this web is 20 feet wide. I've got a big lens. This is my 400 millimeter lens. One week before I left, one of these guys tried to web over my driveway, and my driveway is 30 feet across. A single strand from that 30 feet. What an enterprising creature. Empty space, right? Here's a creature hanging out right in the middle of empty space. Talk about, on a dust pour, in a skin pour of the Buddhas, right? Okay, this is not a video, but here is somebody I live with. Look at the intelligence here. 8 eyes, right? This is called a huntsman. And mind you, I'm not looking at him face to face. I've got a big lens. I'm about 12 inches away from him. But this creature has a personality, cleans himself, cleans off his feet and all, and tolerates me to a certain point, and then he splits. These are spiders that don't live in webs. They travel. This is called a huntsman. They live in the ceilings, and, oh my goodness, a blessed event happened. The mother reproduced to the tune of 500 babies on my ceiling. Congratulations, Mom. Can you imagine? That's a corner of my ceiling over the Buddha image. And within 24 hours, they were all out of sight. But not gone, just hiding. Oh no! Where'd they all go? there was a wise old Aussie bushman in my meditation class, and I said, "Oh man, there were just so many of them, and then the next day they were all gone." And he said, "No, they're not. They're all still there. You just don't know where they hide." The world is animated. The world is full of life in all these different forms. Humans are part of it. We're not separate from it. We're not a part of it, right? And Australia has one remarkable facet of reptiles, snakes. And in California, if you can find rattlesnakes if you go into the Sierras, right? Or into the foothills of the Sierras. But there are snakes in the East Bay, right? There may be garter snakes, and you have to go to the vivarium. You have to go to the zoo to see snakes. In Australia, you just step outside. Sometimes inside, you find this living world of reptiles. This is a carpet python. They're actually, if you're afraid of snakes, this won't look attractive at all. But it's a very beautiful animal. And very mellow and tranquil and serene. Chinese astrology talks about the snake here as being very tranquil and contemplative and serene. Hear the kookaburras? This is Seraphina, the carpet python. She has a blue tongue. There was a cyclone, and the cyclone knocked down 5 of our trees, including her home. She's looking for a new home. That's why she was out. And actually it was Phil. Phil is sitting right here. Phil met me on the driveway, and Phil said, Pasher, there's a snake. Phil is not a fan of snakes, but Phil saw her first. Remember Phil? Yeah. And Phil found me and said, "There's a snake." And I said, "Oh, okay, what kind of a snake?" He said, "A big one." And so we went to lunch, and then after lunch, I said, "Phil, show me where the snake was." So we went over. She was still there. So thank you, Phil, for finding. And if you don't like snakes, this could be really too much. Because why? 7 feet long. This is a wild carpet python, not venomous at all. If this snake bites you for any reason, you'd have to really irritate it, get in its face and try to kill it or something before it would bite you. Because otherwise it's just going to go away. It doesn't want to hang out with you. But they have 100 teeth, and if they bite you, it hurts. But you won't get sick. Not venomous. A little bit long, however. Right? So she's looking for a new home. She is clearly the boss of this neck of the woods. And pythons take up turf, they travel. If they're male, they're looking for a female, and males will fight over a female. And they're like anybody. They want security, they want food, and what they eat is rodents. And if they're big enough, they'll eat puppies and chickens. Oh, they love chickens. They will eat an entire chicken. Big snake. So, okay. So, where else do snakes appear? Well, snakes appear in another religious classic that we know called the Hebrew Scriptures, Garden of Eden. I was about 5 feet away from her when I was taking it. And she totally knew I was there and knew that I wasn't a threat. I wasn't going to eat her. and I'm too big for her to eat, so not interested. One more here. You can see the size. There. This is the size. And I have to say, I've been to Australia every year for 5 years now, and I've seen 3 snakes. And I've seen her twice, because she's our local queen of the jungle. The tongue is how she smells. Yeah, Chin-chan. Chin-chan. Kookaburras eat little ones. Seraphina's too big. Yeah, but if she were smaller, Ollie would be very interested in her, and they have to watch out for kookaburras. Kookaburras are snake eaters, among other things. Kookaburras, yeah, but when they're that big, bigger snakes will eat snakes. The biggest predator is the automobile. Pretty. I mean, that's quite an amazing pattern. Fits in perfectly with the environment, That's great camouflage. They make pets. People make pets out of pythons pretty easily. Okay, enough of the snake. A little more, one more here. We've got, what's that? Apparently they will relate to people, as long as you feed them, yeah. Yep. At night. Possums. Love bananas. Don't get bananas very often. Look at the intelligence here. This is Percy, and Percy's now a mom. This is 2 years ago. She cycled around, given birth. Oh. Here's Percy with her dad. She's really getting into it. Climbing into the food dish. Cute. So gila. So what the lorikeets and the turkeys leave during the day, the possums clean up at night. So anyway, there we go. It's time to quit. But just to say, if we can, let's see. We need to reverse everything. Put the screen up, turn the projector off, and we'll bow. The point in showing everybody that was just to say that when we live in the city, when we're urban creatures, it's very easy to assume that we're the number one species, the only one that matters. And it doesn't take much to get back out into a world where that is just obviously not true. Obviously not true. And we are one species, and our time, we could easily remove ourselves from the planet, and everything else would be probably better off, if humanity would vanish. So, I like the sutra's model of the natural world. And it seems so bizarre, so far away from us, and yet it's the tools of technology that show us, in fact, that our current view of one species overall is an aberration, and it's not sustainable. This is our time; it's not going to last. We're going to eat the world, and then it'll recycle and we'll be gone. So, anyhow, let's bow to the Buddhas. See you all next week. Any announcements? Anything? Tomorrow's the anniversary of Master Hua's, the observance of his nirvana, starting in the morning at 7 o'clock at CTDB with bowing, and then all day. Go in the morning if you want to go to take part in the great meal offering. There's a refuge ceremony and the precepts tomorrow. And next week is pretty quiet around here. Okay, following, yeah, you want to say that?
So this upcoming week, I got it confused last time, but this upcoming Tuesday, Abhayagiri monastics will be coming for the first Tuesday down here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. And then that will be starting at 5 p.m. and then I think usually 5 to 6, and then they break, and then they 7:30 to 9:30 is their Dharma talk. And then also the following week we will have the Amitabha recitation for one day. It's the walking recitation, and it was moved back a week because tomorrow is going to be the Venerable Master's Nirvana Day at CDTB.
Okay, let's bow. Stand up slowly if your legs are asleep. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Phang Guan